Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We are giving everyone a second to join us from the waiting room, and then we will begin. And this is Sabrina Paganoni, and we are connecting from the HEALEY Center for ALS at Mass General. If you can go to the next slide. And this is our platform trial webinar. So thank you for following us. As always, our webinars are recorded and posted on the website, as well as the slides. And for those of you who have been following us for a while, you're very familiar with the platform trial concept. For those of you who are new, welcome. We're always happy to be online and provide you with updates. So the platform trial is a fantastic collaboration with multiple members of the ALS community in academia, industry, the patient community, foundations, and most importantly, the participants who have made this trial possible. Next slide. So tonight, I'll just briefly go over what the platform trial is for those of you who may be new, but tonight I'm particularly excited that we're going to introduce you to one of our newest sites, and we're very, very happy to have them tonight with us. So as a reminder, we started in 2020 with about 50 sites. That decided to join this initiative where we have, a platform trial that uses the same common protocol and shared infrastructure to be able to test multiple drugs efficiently. We call each drug a regimen. So we started in 2020, and then we continue to add more regimens. And now we have 2 regimens that are active, regimen F and regimen G. And the reason this is a more efficient way of doing trials is that we leverage shared processes, one protocol, one central governance structure, and this makes it possible for people from many different sites, many different locations in the US to join and test multiple drugs. Next slide. The basic principle is the same for every regimen. We want to test if a drug is safe and effective for the treatment of ALS. And we are in the phase 2 space, which means that the primary goal here is to rapidly screen drugs either in or out. So if there is promising evidence or a promising signal, then the drug will move forward in drug development to phase 3. And if there isn't, then we have a number of ways to remove drugs from the platform. And we even have futility analyses that allow us to stop a regimen early so that we don't, waste resources and time. We want the entire platform to continue to move as quickly as possible, screen drugs in or screen them out, and move them to the drug development process. Next slide. So the thing that we are most proud of, I think, is that by having the platform trial and its shared infrastructure open and expanding, we've been able to provide the same opportunities to people regardless of their geographic location. As I said, in 2020, we started with about 50 sites. But then we have received a lot of requests from patients and sites that were in locations that were not previously included, and they wanted to join because they understand sort of the impact and the power of this more efficient design. And also there are some areas that are more densely populated that need more capacity, because we also want to make sure that people who are from either big cities or areas where there are a lot of patients that are interested in joining, they would have enough capacity to join. And so for that reason, we have expanded to the current number of a little over 70 sites that are enrolling or have been enrolling at different locations throughout the country. And tonight, I'm very, very happy to introduce to you the team leading the effort on the platform trial at Dent Neurologic Institute. So if you can go to the next slide, I will turn it over to Dr. Myers and Dr. Mattle, who are leading the efforts there. And we're very happy that you decided to join us.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Thanks for including us. And we're absolutely thrilled to have been selected a HEALEY site here in Buffalo, New York. For many years, there was no ALS research to speak of going on in Western New York, and we're thrilled to be able to offer this to our local community. That's a picture of our main office here in Amherst, New York, which is just northeast of Buffalo. Can you go on to the next slide, please? So Dent Neurologic Institute. So we're a private practice, which is maybe a little unusual, especially for the amount of research we're able to do. We're kind of really a mix, even though we're private practice, privately owned by the physicians, the partner physicians of the group. We do have a large research arm, the Dent Neurologic Research Center. And in addition to patient care research, we do a lot of education. We train residents, we train medical students, we train fellows. We have a neuroimaging fellowship that is run out of the Dent that trains neurologists to read MRI. We're one of the largest, if not the largest, outpatient neurology practices in the United States. We have 18 neurologists, 3 psychiatrists, 1 pain management physician. We have approximately 50 physician assistants and nurse practitioners, which enables us to see a very large volume of patients. We have close to 1,200 patient visits daily, over 325,000 patient visits annually. We're involved in over 80 clinical research studies. We have research studies involved in Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, myasthenia gravis, Parkinson's, migraine, Huntington's disease, and now, of course, ALS. We have 4 locations, our main location up in Amherst. Between our locations, we have 5 different MRI scanners. We have 2 EMG labs that last year did over 5,700 EMGs and every other ancillary that you would expect. One of the big advantages we have as far as participating in the HEALEY study, we draw from our local population, of course, which is about a 1.5 million catchment area from where we usually see patients, but we're also very close to Toronto, Ontario. It's a less than 2-hour drive. Toronto's got a population of over 6 million people. And if you include the other, smaller cities between Toronto and Buffalo, you're talking over 8 million people, and we're the closest HEALEY site to that location. So certainly there's a very large volume of patients patients with ALS that we're hopeful to be able to enroll in the studies. What's also maybe uncommon, if not unique for us, is that our research arm is run by neuropharmacologists. So we have 4 neuropharmacologists who run the Dent Neurologic Research Center. And because we're a private practice, we don't have a whole lot of layers of administration we have to go to. Basically, if for any given study, if the site investigator, such as myself and Dr. Ranka, the head of our DNRC Research Center, agree to do a research study, we do the research study. And we're able to bring whatever resources we need in order to make that happen. Can you go on to the next slide, please? So here's our HEALEY research team. I'm in the upper left-hand corner there. To my right is Dr. Anna Mattle, who will be speaking after me. Next to her is Tanya Geist, who's a sub-I physician's assistant who was instrumental in helping us get enrolled in the HEALEY Center. Next to her, Dr. Tracy Alladine, a neuropharmacologist. In the next row, we have Dr. Michelle Ranka, who runs the DNRC. And then 2 over from her is Dr. Luisa Rojas, who's our other ALS specialist here in the group. And then just in the bottom row in the middle is Allison Emborski. She's one of our lead research coordinators. She has the unfortunate task of having to work with me every day. And with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Mattle.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. So I just kind of want to highlight our HEALEY research team a little bit more. So, and Dr. Myers did touch on this, that our site does utilize, PharmDs or doctors of pharmacy as study coordinators. So I actually am a pharmacist by training, but on the HEALEY study, I am also a sub-I and the primary coordinator. And that does make our site quite unique in that sense. We do have us on the team as drug information resources, and we feel that we're really able to apply our clinical knowledge to these research trials and to these investigational therapies. And our team is rather, we have quite a large team that's dedicated to research in addition to our investigators who also have their clinical practices. So we are able to see quite a large volume of patients for research in addition to our investigators seeing patients clinically. So that's kind of a unique part of our team as well. We do have, quite a large nursing staff who support us as well. We only have 1 supervising RN delegated for the study, but we do have quite a large nursing staff who helps with blood draws and infusions and things like that for our research studies. And we also have a couple of dedicated lab techs who do all of our processing for the HEALEY studies, who are also instrumental in making these studies possible with all of the labs that these studies do require. That's kind of all I wanted to highlight about our team. I think that's all I have. Are there any questions at all for myself or Dr. Myers?
I see a couple of questions in the chat box. The first is whether we've experienced any issues with Canadian participants joining trials at our facility. The short answer is not really. Recently, we had a Canadian patient who's involved in an ALS research study where they had to delay. Actually, I'm sorry, it was a Huntington's patient where they had to delay their initial visit for the study because there was a threat of a strike among the Canadian border police. But in general, crossing the border is not a problem. And so we've enrolled a number of Canadian patients in a variety of different studies: Alzheimer's, ALS. We have two Canadian patients, multiple sclerosis, and we have not had any issues with patients crossing the border to participate in our studies. And then the next question: how do you help your patients decide if participation in clinical research is right for them? So their providers, whether it's myself, Dr. Rojas, or one of our physician assistants, are seeing patients with ALS. ALS patients, of course, in particular, are asked about research all the time. But we certainly try to feel out early on, whether it's an ALS patient or a patient with any disease that we have a research study, whether they have any interest in research. And if they do have an interest, then what we do is we will pass their name on to one of our research coordinators, such as Dr. Mattle, who will then reach out directly to the patient and have a conversation with them outside of the clinic visit. And we like to do it that way. I mean, I like to be able to give patients a little bit of a view of the research, but I like for there to be someone separate on the research side talking to the patient so that the patient isn't feeling any kind of pressure like they have to participate. And so we kind of like having that tag team approach and helping patients decide if they're interested in participating in a research study. Oh, and then last question: do research participants need to be patients at your clinic? The answer is no. We've had patients, certainly we have patients where other providers in town may refer patients for research studies. As I said, patients who are Canadian generally are not our patients. And then we've had patients for some studies come from quite afar. I think our record is we have someone from France who came, not for an ALS study, a multiple sclerosis study. So patients do not have to be patients at the Dent in order to participate in our research studies.
And I do want to add too that we are typically able to get patients in quite quickly for research studies that are recruiting. I have heard at some sites that there can be waits for patients who are trying to get into studies, and we simply don't have that. Patients reach out to us, or we reach out to patients if they're referred to us by the providers for the studies, and we can get them in very quickly as long as they qualify. So we really don't have wait times for getting patients into studies. We don't have a waiting list of patients. We get them in very quickly for these studies.
Yeah, and that's because we've made a priority that research is critically important, and so we always find room for them in our schedule somewhere so that we can accommodate them.
This is so wonderful to hear. As I said earlier, expanding access to different geographies is one of our priorities, and that includes people, obviously from, both urban and rural areas, international participants, people who don't speak English, people who may not be connected to the specific clinic and may just come for research. So thank you so much for making it possible. And I think, as we, right now we're not enrolling new participants, but as we launch new regimens over the next few months, I think it will be great to continue to learn from sites like yours. Every site has a little bit of a different model. And that's because, in a way, we are a franchise, but we in every trial, there's multiple sites, but sites are actually very different. So it's great to learn about what works, what makes your site so successful, and that's also why we were so excited to have you here. There's one question that just came in, and just maybe we can unpack this. So the question is: have you ever considered to become an ALS clinic? So I don't know if you actually are designated as an ALS clinic, or it's more because you are a neurological center. Do you?
So we are a designated ALS clinic. Yes, we participate with ALS Association as well as the MDA. We're associated with both organizations, and our ALS clinic, we have the usual physical therapists, speech therapists, respiratory therapists, everything that you would expect in an ALS clinic.
That's wonderful. Actually, I have a question for you, Dr. Mattle. I will say I think the first time that I've seen doctors in pharmacy be involved in clinical trials, at least in our area. So can you tell me more about your role and how that works? Because it's something that maybe we could replicate at other sites as well.
Yeah, we're certainly, myself and then the other PharmDs in the department are highly involved in, not only going through the study visits, but also answering patient questions. Especially for these regimen F and regimen G, there's quite a few drug-drug interactions that we have to be concerned about. So we really provide counseling on those medications. We'll have patients reach out to us asking, oh, can I start this medication? Can I stop this medication? And we really are the experts on that. So I think we're a good resource in that sense, but also in as far as counseling patients on how to take their investigational medication properly. We certainly provide those services. And for some studies, if we're preparing IV infusions, of course, we'll do that as well. Or preparing an injection. That doesn't apply to these two regimens, but maybe at some point in the future. Yeah, we're involved in the whole process, really, from regulatory startup. Dr. Ranka and Dr. Aladine are highly involved in budgets, contracts, startup. They're very intimately familiar with that process. And then we're anywhere from pre-screening to seeing if, looking through patients' med lists to seeing if there's any drug-drug interactions to be concerned about with the study medications. And then rating, we do tons of rating scales for our studies. PharmDs are trained to complete, standardized scales and to assist in those processes. So we're familiar with that. So yeah, we're really, really highly involved in pretty much every aspect of these trials.
That's excellent.
And I would just like to add that I've been very lucky in that my entire career for 20 years has been at the Dent, and being able to work with a neuropharmacologist, and they're just an invaluable resource, and it's just a wonderful collaboration, because even though I know my medications, I don't know them the way they do, and they just the level of expertise they bring, and they're always available for me to reach out to them to answer those questions that are beyond what I do know. So they're fantastic to work with.
That's wonderful. There's another question about your institute. So you mentioned you're involved in many trials. Do you also have early access programs, expanded access?
So we have participated in some early access programs for Tolfersen in particular. We were a participant in that early access program, and I think we had 5 or 6 participants in the early access program. And that was, it was a big lift being able to get through everything that needed to be done, just paperwork wise, approvals. But again, it's, we have such an incredible team here that they were able to kind of, from when we decided that we wanted to enroll, to enable patients to have access to early access, we were able to get activated, I think, in 3 weeks, even though it was a tremendous amount of work. We have an incredible team that they were able to kind of do that hard work that needed to be done to participate in the early access program for Tolfersen.
Wonderful, thank you. So I think this was a fantastic webinar, and we always love to learn about new models of access and models of care. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I'll leave you the last word. Anything you want to share?
Go Bills. Anna?
I got nothing. No, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.